A little bit. My name is Nicolaj, and I'm doing these PreSeed Aacademy events together with PreSeed. Basically, what I do mostly for a living is investing in startup as a business angel, and then also teach at Copenhagen Business School. And today the topic is data-driven growth, and there will be a cliffhanger because I have a big secret to share with you very soon. So the whole idea is of these talks we have tonight is how do we get knowledge and actions out of all these data, right? Because right now, with just being an amateur marketer like myself, you can generate a lot of data in any startup, right? Any platform you use or whatever can spit out a lot of data, but how are you actually going to use that to increase the marketing effectiveness? That is in short what we'll talk about today. So we have two cool speakers. We have Steffen, who's that? Oh yeah, he's just moved. So Steffen, with a background both from Airtame and now his own new software startup, Dream Data, will talk about marketing and attribution of revenue, how you actually get these kind of insights, which is much harder done than said. After that, we have Casper, who is head of growth at Templafy, one of the very successful Danish startups, who give insights into what he's actually doing. And he didn't really have a name of his presentation, but on one of your slides, you actually had this saying, the things I would like to have known. And I think that's really great because that's seen in perfect hindsight from a very experienced person like you. What would you like to have known about what you're doing right now? So it's just something I made up. So what are we going to do? The agenda, I'll do a very brief introduction to the topic. We have Steffen, we have a break. And in the back, we have a lot of nice drinks and snacks. And it's quite important that you use both doors and get all the way in. Otherwise, we'll have a big traffic jam in the middle. We have that break for approximately 15 minutes. Then we have Casper going on. And what we do after Casper's talk is we go directly to a Q&A. And what we have done with quite some success in the past is that we use this online tool called Pigeonhole. You have some notes somewhere here on the sides with links to Pigeonhole. And you can go in there and enter the passcode ToolTalk2, and there you can enter all the questions you might have. Of course, we can also take a few questions as we go, but it's really great to have these questions at the end because they might be relevant for all speakers. So remember, pigeonhole.at and ToolTalk2. So what is my big secret? The big secret is, I have a master degree in marketing. Oh my God. Yes, I'm out of the closet now. I have one. So I took my degree and I graduated in year 2000, and I just hated marketing. So why did I hate marketing? What was the problem with marketing 20 years ago? Any idea? Well, what? Yeah, lack of data. And what is the result with lack of data? Who ran the decisions? The creative people. Meaning that when you had to answer whether we should do a print ad or another ad, the question was, let's ask the creative people who sat in a very expensive advertising agency, drank some coffee and decided, yeah, let's do print. It's the best. Why? Because it's the best. So really a lot of this decision power was there without any real data. Of course, I think that's at least my perspective of marketing 20 years ago. And every time you ask whether you could measure it, it was like, no, we can't really do that. It's marketing, right? It's not sales, it's marketing. And basically you can say that's exactly what's happening still in R&D today, right? Go into any R&D organization and try to quantify it. It's still hard. There's actually an opportunity there, but that's another story. So it's not a new thing, right? Basically, for the last 100 years, when you have ran mass marketing campaigns, it's always been the same. We go to any of the big companies 20 years ago, and even many of them still, and ask, what is the effect of that mass marketing campaign? Honestly, they don't know. They might give you some bullshit figures about it, but they don't really know. Of course, in startups, it's quite often different because we have other budgets and it's driven by younger people like you, meaning that we're not putting in 1 million in some silly print ads. No, we want to have the data, right? We want to have, okay, what are we getting out of that? But still, it's a big mess. But let's continue in the good old days. So what happens if you really want to know if if this marketing effort was worth it. What did you do? Yeah.
Qualitative research.
Yeah.
Market areas.
Yeah. You basically hired people like those, right? For a small sum of 2 million kroner, would run a survey to find out that your awareness in the Danish market had increased from 55 to 70%, and many of the respondents said it was due to your advertising campaign or something like that. You know, that was basically big business. And of course, since it was so costly, you didn't really do it, right? Because it was just like, yeah, do we really want to spend the 2 million on that, or should we just run a new campaign? And that has basically been marketing from the 18 whatever up until 2000 and whatever, right? And then a lot of things have happened the last 15 years. So, and it might seem old-fashioned for you, but it's actually not that many years ago. So what has changed now? I think the best example I had is, and I use computer games because I played computer games when I was young, and now my kids are playing, right? So how would you market a computer game just 15 years ago or 20 years ago, right? Typically, physical distribution was typically still important. Typically, your product was also a physical, maybe a CD-ROM or whatever. How did you promote it? Well, it was still classic marketing campaign. And due to all that, you also typically had a classic price. It cost 500 kroner upfront, right? And how many of you are playing Fortnite or have someone that plays Fortnite, right? Just, we don't have time to go into detail, but just see how it all have changed. And all that also implies new business model. So with that, what is the underlying reason for that? It's basically due to digitalization and sales and marketing, right? These are statistics here from 2019 about the largest advertising channels. Surprisingly, TV is still the biggest one. I think it's driven by two things. It's big companies in the US, right? But you have paid search that is 100 billion. That didn't exist 20 years ago, basically. You had social media advertising that is 84 billion that didn't exist basically 10 years ago. And if I go to small companies or tech companies, I'm sure these will be the highest one. So a lot of things have changed. And when you look into the respondents saying what would they spend more on, basically the picture is clear. We'll spend more about all that can be measured and is electronic, and we'll spend less on newspapers and magazines. So basically, 66 and 70% of all respondents expect to spend less on newspapers and magazines next year, right? Oh my God, I'll be worried if I worked in L or whatever, right? So again, I'll not talk so much about the data itself because we have two cool speakers on that. I'm just saying, aren't you amazed about how much data is generated? I went into my two favorite social media, Facebook and LinkedIn, and just went down and go to the first post, right? So this is for some kind of AI summit, and this is for an MBA, right? Do you know how much they know about me? It's amazing. But do they actually know how to use it? Some of they do, some don't. This might be relevant for me. So this one, what's the problem with that? The problem is that they have noticed I have an interest in an MBA. What they haven't noticed is I already have an MBA. What is the chance that I take another MBA? Quite small. Especially if it's from Henley, sorry, but that's another story. So there's still a lot to be learned, right? And I still think when I talk to startups and big companies, we basically all have this big issue. Unlike 20 years ago where the issue is we have no data, now the issue is, oh my God, we have tons of data, but we can't really use it because it's so time consuming to use. And many of us don't know how to start. And honestly, especially when you run into marketing managers my age, they have no clue. Because they have been educated in the 90s like me. So they haven't grown up with digital marketing like many of you. But again, I'm not going into detail with that because that's the topic of the two cool guest speakers we're having. Instead, I'll be the bad guy and said, what could go wrong? So what can possibly go wrong with all this data? Any idea?
You're attributing the wrong effects.
Yeah, that could be. So wrong calculations, a lot of spreadsheets with a lot of assumptions. Yeah. The first thing I said is, I'm really a fan of online marketing. But you should also question yourself and say, why are we spending more money on online marketing than offline marketing? Is it A, because it's more effective, or is it B, because we can measure the effect, right? It could be that you actually were in a business, I don't know what that business could be, the recruiting of MBA students, right? It could be that a print ad was actually more efficient than the LinkedIn ad. But what's the problem with the print ad? Right? What do you answer when your boss asks you, how much did we get out of that campaign? I don't know, right? We got 4 more applicants, or we got so many more visitors to the website, but we can't really know where they come from, right? So one of the things I'm worried about is whether we are too focused on the things we can actually measure, and we are missing a lot of opportunities, especially in the offline world. The second thing is about part of the funnel, because even in the digital world, it's really hard to measure, the top part of the funnel. So one of them could be PR, right? I just basically Googled Danish startups, whatever, in Business Insider, and there was an article about the Danish startup invented underwear you can wear for weeks. Doesn't it sound nice? Okay, that's another story. But okay, they invented that. What's the value of that? My gut feeling is it has a lot of value. My gut feeling is that it creates a lot of value for stakeholders, investors like me, customers like you, potential partners. It creates value. But how can you measure that? It's really hard. One of my startups got really a full-page article in Mail Online in the UK. Yes, we got a little bit of sales the day after, but the value is much bigger. But how much bigger? So what I see in many of my startups is that we pay a lot of focus on stuff here because it's so easy to measure the effect of conversion thing like Google AdWords or Facebook lead campaigns or something like that, where it's really hard to do that. And finally, it's quite fun, but it's quite a coincidence. The topic of Harvard Business Review this month is actually our metrics undermining your business. Because the problem is, if you have a strategic goal, sometimes your short-term data don't match that, right? So I see startups, including the ones I'm in myself, where we're so much focusing, oh my God, this segment seems to convert better than this segment. Let's focus on that. That might be right in the short term, but is it also right long term? I think it's a positive problem and something we can live with. It's for sure much, much better than the issues we had 20 years ago where we had no clue. And that's also why that marketing people like the 2 speakers here, it's a very different breed of people than the ones who ran organizations 20 years ago, not only in startups, but also in larger companies. With that introduction, I will actually give the word to Steffen, who will share his perspective on how we get knowledge out of this mess.